It's your official kickoff to Super Bowl weekend, and that starts with a 6-game slate in the National Basketball Association on this Friday night. I'm JT Hayes. I'm joined today by DC, as always, and then we have a guest today from the European Premier League. It's Rubio DiMattias, and we're happy to have him here on this Friday. Go ahead and hit the like button. If you're not already a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe to the Run Pure Sports YouTube network. And of course, as always, get in to Run Pure Sports with a code New Year 15 or just New Year. You get 15% off of your first month's payment. That'll include SaberSim. That'll include the cores, the cash charts, the premium shows like the Up to Lock show that won our girl Brittany $100,000 off of $69 in entries. Everyone said 30. You have to look. It was $69 in entries. I think there's some symmetry there. Congrats to a longtime member and grinder, Brittany, on that big win the other night. DC, we'll start with you. We'll bring in our athlete, soccer star here in just a moment. He's grinding every sport, but
hold on. DC,
I know that it's not time for you. Don't make me mute you.
He's the
DC, you've got a big weekend coming up. I don't want to dwell on it too much. We're rooting for Deebo Samuel. We're rooting for a competitive game here. How do you feel the Friday before the Super Bowl on this lovely evening?
Yeah, feeling good. Couldn't ask to be in a better spot with Big Spot. We've talked about it a bunch on the show this week, so we won't go in depth today, but I appreciate the well wishes, and we'll be hoping turns out for the best. I'll be, nervously pounding down the drinks during the Super Bowl for sure. Hopefully we'll be able to remember the end of the game if I win or lose. So it'll be a good time. And I should have taken this week off, like our guy AP, faking sick during Super Bowl week so he doesn't have to come on the show. Gets Rubio on here. It makes me do an extra show with Holden yesterday, which I never appreciate. So no, I think AP might be watching. So get well soon, AP. We hopefully you're not too sick to enjoy the Super Bowl, but we're excited for it, of course. But, before we get there, we've got another fun slate of NBA basketball on our hands tonight, UFC tomorrow, and then the long wait for the Super Bowl. One of my least favorite things about the Super Bowl is just waiting all day for the game to start. You know what I mean? It starts so late in the day. I feel like it should start at the normal NFL time, but excited for it. And hopefully it will go my way in the end.
Especially this year, DC, I'll be thinking of you. I'll be rooting hard for you on Sunday, and my eyes will be glued to Twitter to see the screenshot at the end of the game. I'm hoping for it. But in the meantime, we've got before I get to Rubio, you mentioned AP faking sickness. We hope he feels better. All kidding aside, I've got a little tickle in my throat, but guess what? I'm a professional, so I'm here, as opposed to our Discord yesterday, which was alive with concern for Kevin Fowler. Kevin, I hope you're feeling better. He just typed in a Discord, someone please take everything. I am very sick, which, of course, people who have connections with doctors and hospitals sending them, what do you need? That was exactly the point of the message, Rubio, wasn't it? Give me a little bit of love and attention this Thursday before the Super Bowl. But how are you doing? You're grinding every sport from the European Premier League to F1. I'm sure there's LOL cores that are going up in the middle of the night. How's your Friday?
Oh, our LOL team, our League of Legends team is the best, man. We got Big Kev and Captain on it. They do a great job. I cannot lie. I did play League of Legends to start the week. So, you're not far off, but obviously I'm yearning for the WNBA days here in a couple months. It's something that I just very passionate about, but we will have full projections this season as always too. But I know that you two have been winning a lot more than me over the last few months. I mean, JT, you were just like, you haven't brought it up or anything, but man, you were like a half point away from $1 million just a couple of months ago too. Like, we're all firing on all cylinders right now. Not to bring up a painful memory.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder, you fuckwad. But go on.
But I mean, it just shows though, like from top to bottom, any sport that we can pick up, it's always fun. And I'm excited for the 6-game slate tonight. I mean, AP, he said, he's like, oh, I hate to do this, blah, blah, blah. And then he shuts the show on me. I'm like, okay, it's all good. But yeah, again, hope he gets all right. And, I am definitely not the soccer star on this show.
Rubio, are there any DraftKings contests offering sports that you do not play?
Call of Duty, I haven't played yet. So Call of Duty probably the only one, and you're gonna like this one, guys. Baseball. I don't play baseball.
What?
I really don't play MLB. I turned WNBA season.
Rubio.
You play something. You play something called the DFS Valorant esport, but you don't play baseball?
You want to know the best thing about Valorant, DC? Not
really.
I won 1K. I won 1K off women's Valorant with Bruce's core. Women's Valorant too.
It's about the most Rubio thing I've ever heard in my life. Not surprising at all, to be honest.
You do learn something new every day. Did not think that I would hear that Rubio is yearning for the WNBA in the same breath as saying that his least favorite day of the year is the day that pitchers and catchers report. So it's a really, listen, we've got a diverse crew. By the way, who was it? Don Yeezy Pooh Bear is back there. He was assaulted violently last night after dinner by Quinn. And I don't really want to talk about it. The police were here. But we've only got 6 games, so go ahead. If you've got some questions about anything, questions about the Super Bowl, questions about tonight's slate, anything that you want an opinion on from our guest Rubio. As you can see, he's a man of many interests, including Valorant, but definitely not Major League Baseball. All right, we'll hit the like button. We'll get into this slate here, and it starts with an interesting one. Of course, this slate, before we even get into the slate, right, we've got a number of really mostly low-level trades yesterday in the NBA. We've got a couple of teams on a back-to-back. The Milwaukee Bucks are an absolute mess. Looks like the Lakers are headed for not the postseason, so a lot of their guys questionable. And it looks like on the surface, DC, a stars and scrubs type of slate where there's so much value available. And the question is going to be whether or not Eugene Omoruyi is one of those values that's a really good value with a 17-point spread, and him looking to be the second most popular guy on the slate. The most popular guy, I think, is in a good spot, Amen Thompson. But, DC, when you look at this slate, the spend up here is Giannis, who's 11-8, coming off an absolute dud of a game last night. It was a difficult matchup, but certainly expected more from the perennial MVP candidate than to just absolutely cry and hide in the corner against the Timberwolves. And then you look at just a third of his ownership, Nikola Jokic, and this has been a good matchup for him. So what do you see here? You're seeing this as a stars and scrubs night and just basically having to pick through that value to decide which is actually the best, or you think there's a middle range route here that you could go?
I think you could do either, but yeah, I'm with you. I do think it is a stars and scrubs night. And it kind of starts, as you mentioned, the big question, I guess, is whether or not to play Giannis. I think he'll be highly owned. Couldn't believe how bad he was yesterday. Especially with Lillard out, with Middleton out, it did make sense. Like, we did talk about it on the show. Like, I thought Lillard was going to sit, but like, when you're Giannis and you can't shoot the basketball, right? And you're playing the Wolves, who don't allow any transition buckets, and then they've got Rudy Gobert. I mean, he's legitimately one of the best rim protectors in NBA history, defending the rim. So it did make a little bit of sense why Giannis struggled. Different story today, though, right? Against Charlotte. So I would expect a big bounce back game, especially for someone as competitive as Giannis. And I mean, the Bucks, I think they're now 1-5 since firing their coach and getting Doc Rivers in there. I saw that they were like a top 3 net rating team in the league, and they've been just dreadful under Doc Rivers, which is it's kind of enjoyable. As we all love to hate on Doc Rivers. We all hated the hiring, and then they've just totally sucked. We saw a different scenario. Obviously, we saw kind of a similar thing with the Clippers when they traded for Harden. They were just awful for a while. I do think the Bucks will figure it out, but yeah, starting tonight, obviously a really good bounce back spot against Charlotte. And yeah, we'll obviously talk about Giannis when we get to that game. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to get Jokic at, what'd you say, a third of the ownership, something like that projected?
I think at least a third.
To make that pivot, especially if Dame ends up playing in this game for the Bucks. So big decision between those two for sure. And like you said, plenty of value. We've seen, I guess, all my complaining about the tight pricing. Maybe it worked because we're seeing a little bit looser. There are more value plays, which I personally prefer. I know maybe you disagree somewhat, JT, but I do think there are multiple ways to build a winner tonight.
I was fine with the old pricing, but you know what? That's the game we play. So we'll play whatever they put out, Rubio. No Caitlin Clark on the slate, though. So are you, as our buddy Alex said, Caitlin Clark hitting a game winner is Rubio's World Series. Love to see that. But Rubio, are you looking? I think there's probably a way you could get both Giannis and Joker into your lineups and actually make it viable. And I don't know if that's the way I'm going to go just yet, but I think it's more viable on this slate than, to DC's point, it was at any point earlier in the season. And a lot of that value, too, right now is coming as a result of players not being available. Now, of course, it looks like there's going to be some guys available for Philadelphia and for Milwaukee here with Patrick Beverley, Buddy Hield, and then also Campaign. So how are you looking at this slate overall in terms of roster construction?
Yeah, I mean, clearly Amen Thompson is the more talented Thompson brother after Suarez gotten into foul trouble in back-to-back nights. But Amen Thompson, though, running that point just the other day, too, for Houston. You know, he's one of those guys you look at 5,300, you plug and play, right? And then it kind of leaves you 7 other spots to go through. And I don't think I'm going to be able to get double stud, JT. I just don't think it's too viable tonight because I still think there's some guys back. It's not like the amazing plays are just like, you know, 3K minimum, right? They're in that like 4K range, like, you know, Eugene Omarui. Did I pronounce that right? If I didn't, correct.
That's perfect. That's even better than my pronunciation, which doesn't happen often.
Then I won't pronounce it again because I don't want to screw it up. So, but he's 3.8 too. So you're kind of in that range where, you know, you're going to be limited if you're trying to get these guys. You're near the 12K range at all. So I think just overall, I think one stud and then kind of maybe sifting through this mid range because, yeah, there's guys I like. Like I like that Houston game just in general too. So if you're looking at maybe a game stack, you know, kind of from there, and you got guys who are kind of not in that mid tier, but you know, Sengun's not in that mid tier, but he's like stud at 9K quickly, and those guys. I mean, that'll be my favorite game to target. And then what DC said about like the Bucks too, to be honest, like he's my preferred stud. But I mean, goodness, Jokic against this Kings too. We've been wanting to attack this Kings defense. My only concern with Denver, back-to-back. I mean, back-to-back with Milwaukee too. So you got some spots. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you know, there's no chance that like Jamal Murray could sit. But I mean, it's the second night of a back-to-back after a hard-fought game against the Lakers. Like you could see surprise news a little bit later on. So, you know, we could have more value than I expect.
I was checking this out because it is a back-to-back for both Milwaukee and Denver. The last time that Denver faced Sacramento in Sacramento, Joker put up 84 fantasy points, and guess what? It was the second night of a back-to-back. So I do think, see, Rubio, there you go. I do think it's possible. All right, we are, and by the way, Doc Rivers, I mean, that is a perfect example of if it's not broken, don't fix it. Hey, let's fire this coach, bring in this coach who has historically underwhelmed, and now so far you see the results. We'll get into this, though, DC, starting with the first game. It's right here in Atlanta. Atlanta hosting Philadelphia. Atlanta favored by 3, a nice, healthy 247 total. As previously reported, Campaign, Buddy Hield, going to be available for the Philadelphia 76ers. Anthony Melton, Nick Batum are out. And Tyrese Maxey, he's sick again. He's like much of our Run Pure Sports staff, dealing with that monthly illness. And he was a midday downgrade to questionable for the Atlanta Hawks. Mohammed, we don't say his last name here, he is out. DeAndre Hunter is questionable, or it's probable. Patty Mills and Dejounte Murray are questionable. Good matchup here, particularly if Maxey is out. We know all about what centers and power forwards do to this Atlanta Hawks team. So guys like Paul Reed, Tobias Harris. And then on Atlanta, be interested to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts here with the Hawks and the Sixers?
Yeah, Philly is kind of a tough team to figure out, to know what to do with. Obviously, a good matchup all the way around against Atlanta. And, of course, a lot depends on the Tyrese Maxey news. If he's in, I'm kind of inclined to lean away from most of Philadelphia, including probably Maxey himself. Tobias Harris, I think, is overpriced if Maxey plays at 7,800. If Maxey's out, though, I mean, all these guys are in play, Harris included. I think there's a good chance Campaign would draw the start in that scenario, maybe. 3,800 starting point guard. If that happens, you know, you wouldn't be assured the minutes, but it might be something worth trying. Maybe even Buddy Hield, super cheap at 5K. And this is a team that's very, very shorthanded at the moment. They need his shooting. So even he would be, maybe worth throwing a dart at. And then I do think the play that's my favorite play, at least on the Philadelphia side, Mr. Paul Reed, as you mentioned, Atlanta giving it up to centers, just all year long. One of the very, very worst teams, any team against any position. It's about as bad as it gets. Atlanta against centers. Paul Reed, I think his projection in minutes are too low across the industry because he was dealing with that illness, right? For the last 3 games, only played 15 minutes 3 games ago, 22 against Dallas. And then last game, he said he was feeling better. On Wednesday, he played 31. You would assume he is essentially a full go for this one. And yeah, I think he's a little bit under projected just because, the projection systems don't necessarily take into account why someone would play lower minutes in 2 of the last 3 games. So I really, really like Paul Reed at 5,800. I don't think he is, a must play or necessarily a slam dunk. He is a very volatile player, one that I don't play a ton of or haven't, even with the Embiid injury. But today, probably making an exception. I really like Paul Reed. And then obviously the rest of Philadelphia depends on the Tyrese Maxey news. Atlanta side kind of depends on DeJounte Murray news. I thought that he was going to get traded. I don't know if that's why they held him out last game. I kind of suspected so at the time, but he is still listed questionable with that same back injury. I bet he's back in there. If he is, that makes Atlanta, I think much less viable across the board. You can still look at Jalen Johnson, who's been good, kind of regardless of who's been in the lineup. This is a good matchup for him, certainly. And then Okongwu, I think, is a decent play as well, with obviously Capella out. Has played, 36, 34, and 36 minutes since the Capella injury. He's been over 40 fantasy points in 2 of those 3 games. And pretty good matchup for him, too, against the Embiid-less 76ers. So good game all around to kick it off. Obviously, a lot depends on the news for Maxey and DeJounte Murray, but the big men, I think, on both sides remain in play regardless of how the news shakes out.
Rubio, prior to the news that Cam Payne and Buddy Hield were going to be available, it looked like KJ Martin Jr. and Ricky Council IV were going to be among the highest owned plays on the slate. I certainly feel much, much better about Cam Payne and Buddy Hield than I do about those 2 players. What are your thoughts here about the Hawks and the Sixers?
The great thing about the 76ers and Nick Nurse is they don't know how bad Cameron Payne is. So they might actually just play him out there for 30 minutes and then they'll kick the can down the road and deal with it later. But yeah, I mean, Maxey news really impacts the 76ers side, as DC kind of mentioned. Like, if Maxey's out, whoever starts, I mean, that's going to be my main target. I won't spend too much time on Philly because he kind of spent time on it. I'll kind of just phrase it if Maxey's in, right? If Maxey is in, I do want to attack Trey. I do want to go to Maxey at 9-2 potentially, because whenever someone comes in, especially with a questionable tag, like a midday downgrade and stuff, like under 20% for Maxey is very much in the cards here, and one of the best spots possible for point guards. And Paul Reed kind of getting a little pairing here. I mean, we've seen this Atlanta Hawks games just blow up for 270 at times, and that's very much in the cards. I just think on the Atlanta side of the ball, Onyeka Okongwu really kind of picked it up last game after a kind of a lackluster first game as the starter without Capella, but he ended up still getting there. And you're still getting him at a cheapish 6'2" tag. Also, that power forward eligibility matters quite a bit too for me. So this is a game that I just think, like, a broad stroke, it's very interesting. And the Maxey news could make this just elite. If Maxey's out, Buddy Hield and them would be great. I think 5K would be far easier to trust them, or if maybe Cameron Payne got the start too. But yeah, a lot of fun to kind of be had. I think my sneaky guy here, I mean, not that it's too sneaky or anything like that, but I think Jalen Johnson's just due for an explosion. I mean, this is a 76ers team that they're just not, without Embiid, they're not clicking entirely, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They've kind of lost a little bit of that rim protection and stuff. Johnson's a big athletic wing too. I just think that 40-plus point potential, I could definitely sprinkle him in a few teams tonight. But other than that, I mean, kind of summed it up perfectly. Just got to wait for this Maxey news, though.
The Maxey news is definitely big, and the Sixers, they've just been terrible. 1 win since Joel Embiid went down. So we'll follow on, keeping track of that news right up until 6 o'clock. And then JSU and team are going to be here for Up to Lock. So we'll be bringing you all the injury news, breaking down the games if you're a premium member, beginning at 6. Rubio, the next game is one that you said you were interested in. It's Houston at Toronto. Tari Eason out for the Rockets, Marquise Noel out for Toronto, and then the guys who were traded are the only other news here, whether or not they'll be able to play. But interesting matchup. Last time these two teams faced off, of course, it was different. Fred VanVleet was in, and Fred VanVleet is out here. I should mention that as well. And it was just a beatdown by the Rockets of the Raptors. Raptors have been dealing with that a lot lately, a lot of lopsided games. This is not a good team. This is a team that's headed maybe for the lottery. But what are your thoughts tonight, the Rockets and the Raptors?
Gone are the days of me thinking that Houston is very good defensively. That was a quick 2 months, right? I think the first 2 months, I was like, I don't want to go to any Houston game, right? I don't want to, go attack their defense at all. But times have changed a little bit, and you're seeing a very high total for a Houston game. What is it, in the low 230s there? This is a game that just on paper is going to pop a lot too. Like, I love Emmanuel Quickly under 7K. I just think if you can point out one guy who can go ahead and get 45 plus, and it's on the guard spot under 7K. Quickly is one of my first choices here. Pops in the projections, but ultimately he's just a usage king out there, and doesn't really matter who's taking the ball or anything. We obviously saw a couple of trades on the Raptors side too, with Dennis Schroeder being gone. Like, this could be a little bit of a bump to him too. So you got things that are going in his favor. You also just have, guys like Pirtle, who is 6'2", was extremely chalk last game. Still a good spot ultimately. Get some good minutes there. Anytime he's projected for about like 30 or more minutes, I should say, he's always going to be a good play. And right now it's about 32 minutes. They seem committed to using him as the main center too. That's just on the Raptors side of the ball, because I have more interest. Even guys like Barrett and Barnes are fine, but more interest on the Houston side of the ball with Amen Thompson basically being a guy I'm just going to be penciling in, especially in single entry and 3-entry max. Like, you'll definitely find Amen Thompson there. I just don't think there's a ton of reason to fade him. He fills up the stat sheet in every category: points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, you name it. As long as he's not like his brother and gets into foul trouble, he should do well. But you go ahead and just, like, Jabari Smith Jr. is going to be fine at 5,400, still a bit too cheap. But Sengun's the one that I'm really considering, because we have seen just great upside, 50-plus point potential. Can I trust him without Fred VanVleet going in his favor, right? But can I trust him with Jabari Smith there? We have seen the splits just a bit, that he does perform a little bit better without Jabari Smith in terms of just fantasy production. That's one hurdle that I think I'm going to try and get over. But Sengun is my tournament guy, and then I think I might have 2 or 3 guys from this game in my single entry lineups.
DC Rubio likes this game for a mini game stack. What are your thoughts on the Rockets and the Raptors?
Yeah, I think Sengun is interesting. I do worry a little bit if he, kind of weirdly is not actually helped by the absence of Fred VanVleet. It seems like those two have a really good chemistry that, maybe he doesn't have with a rookie point guard in Amen Thompson. So I don't see myself playing Sengun in this game. I think I'm trying to get up to Giannis, trying to get to Joker, and Sengun really doesn't fit too well with those guys in most of the builds that I'm looking at. I will say Amen Thompson, man, I've been really, really impressed with him. I think he is like a legit, very, very good, young, promising player. He's a fantastic defender. So I guess I'll disagree a little bit with Rubio on Quickly. I mean, Quickly's going to be guarded in this game by Thompson, whose calling card is defense. He's like 95th percentile steals and blocks for a guard, really big size. I mean, kind of like his brother, right? Alsir Thompson's calling card is his defense, but Amen Thompson has much more offensive game. And yeah, I think he is an awesome play at 5,300. I think he's going to play all the minutes he can handle, and I think he's ready for this role. So I'm in on Amen Thompson, but not necessarily on the Quickly side, because they've got Thompson and they've got Dylan Brooks, who's another fantastic defender. He could take turns on Quickly, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes as well. So I'm more on the Houston side of this game, specifically Thompson is, I think, an awesome play. I don't mind Jalen Green. I think he's got some pretty big upside at 7,300. I don't think I want to go too crazy with the Rockets, and Amen Thompson almost certainly going to be in my main lineup. So I'll probably focus more there, maybe mix in a little bit of Jalen Green, maybe a little bit of Jabari Smith, who's pretty cheap at 5,400, played 40 minutes in that game against Indiana. And then I'm pretty cool on the Toronto side. Definitely Amin Thompson, my favorite play in this one. He's going to be massively owned, but this is chalk. We talked about it. You guys weren't there, but the show talked about it with the Knicks and the Nets yesterday. There's certain chalk where you just kind of got to play it. I don't think Amin Thompson is quite to that level today, but he is chalk that I think you do want to eat on this slate.
He seems a little bit like, or maybe even more than a little bit like the Miles McBride play from last night, where he's not going to be 94, 95 in some contests. McBride was completely owned. Yep. But I do think that with this type of game environment for him at that price point is something that you just probably don't want to pass up on this slate. So it makes sense. Go ahead and hit the like button. We've got almost 300 people watching. I'm not sure how many likes we have. I'm not concerned about it, but it would help us out if you did it. We've got a very intriguing and live Friday night crew and chat, all of them having fun, talking about Coors Light and Big Pharma and Leaky Black, which we will talk about in a few minutes. And you've also got Christine and Brandon flirting with each other. It's very cute, very nice to see. So love the way this Super Bowl weekend is starting out, DC. The next game is not a game that I have a whole lot of interest in watching, and I want to see what you two guys want to do with this one. Washington at Boston, the Celtics, Christine Celtics, if you will, favored by 17.5 now, 235 total. Drew Holiday and Jaden Springer will be available for the Boston Celtics, as will J.D. Davison and Drew Peterson. Jason Tatum was just ruled in. Xavier Tillman will not play. And just in case, Jordan Walsh will be there on the bench cleaning basketballs in case someone needs one. On the Washington side, Marvin Bagley, Patrick Baldwin, Rashawn Holmes, and Isaiah Livers out. DC, which leads to the Eugene Omoruyi chalk. 38, 40% ownership. I don't know how I feel about that. What do you think?
I'm kind of torn on the Omoruyi ownership projection. So I think he almost has to start in this game. They just don't have anybody else left, right? With the Gafford trade, Bagley's hurt, Holmes is not going to be ready for this game. Really, their only other big man is Anthony Gill, who is, a long history of being just absolutely terrible. I don't think they want to play him minutes. But Omoruyi, he's like 6'6", so he's not appropriately sized for a center.
Would you say undersized?
Yeah, undersized.
Something that Bean is familiar with. Undersized. Go on.
Yes, exactly. He's an expert on that. And a brutal matchup against the Celtics as well. They're probably going to get blown out. But, he could also play like 35 minutes in this game, right? Because they just don't have anybody else. He could play in a blowout. He could close a blowout anyway. And it's a very short sample size, about, 110 minutes on the season that he's played. But, he's been massively productive on a per-minute basis when he's been on the court. Now, yes, most of those minutes are garbage time, just a couple minutes at a time. But, still, he's at, somehow he's at, 1.5 fantasy points per minute over those 110 minutes, and he's 3,800, most likely the starting center. So, yeah, he seems like a player that maybe if you're playing three lineups, maybe you play him in one or two. I don't think you want to slam the lock button on him. I do think there's paths, foul trouble. This Washington team could just really, really struggle. And Boston defends the rim very well. It's not a good matchup at all. But the opportunity and the price are so good that it's kind of hard not to have some interest. I do think Porzingis on the other side is absolutely going to get whatever he wants against this Washington interior. Al Horford to some extent too. You do worry about the minutes in the second half for those guys, but certainly taking a look at the Boston guys, and I do think there's also a decent chance that we see Tatum sit this game out. He was at shoot around, but Boston knows they don't need Tatum to beat this Washington team right now. And we have seen Boston. It seems like they kind of take turns resting guys in games like this. Wouldn't be surprised if they gave Tatum the night off. If that's the case, think you can look at a lot of Boston in this matchup. Porzingis would be one of my favorite plays on the slate, but Jaylen Brown, the guards, White and Drew Holiday would come into play as well. So Boston side, we just good news that Tatum's playing. So scratch that. He's in there. Obviously lowers interest in Boston, but I do think Porzingis is still someone that I'm looking closely at. I don't think I'm playing any other Washington guys other than Omar Rui. I'm not going to Kuzma or Jordan Poole here or Tyus Jones. It'll be the center or bust for me on Washington.
Yeah, Tatum in. Jaden Springer actually was in, but now he's been ruled out. So Tatum in, Springer out, and Daniel Marnoff is our guy, right? He's in here every Friday. He was in here on the Sunday shows, and we love you. So just do me a favor, though, Daniel. Send me your address. I want to send you a dictionary to show you the definition of revenge, because Kristaps Porzingis has absolutely no revenge in his heart for the Washington Wizards deciding to deal him, not pay him. He's actually quite grateful. He's grateful, not vengeful. Rubio, the Wizards and the Celtics, can you get yourself to any place here? Can you get yourself to the 40% owned Washington Wizard undersized forward?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it right now, he's already popping on the projection at his point per dollar, and he's projected for 20 minutes. So logically speaking, if he starts, you'd think, 30 plus minutes or whatever, and his projection would skyrocket. I just don't think these sites want to commit to giving him a huge projection just yet until it gets confirmed. I do think that he's one of those guys where maybe just bite the bullet on if he starts, right? If he's not starting, I think he can gravitate away from that chalk, but pay attention. The Wizards play tomorrow. There's no guarantee that Rashawn Holmes will play tomorrow's game either. That how often that the Wizards might go small, whether they go out there without Anthony Gill or Omar Rui, tonight. It could be Kuzma or Denny Advia potentially playing a small ball 5. I do think that in any other matchup that if it wasn't in Boston, I might commit to that take a little bit more. We see that with the Pacers at times too, where Obi Toppin kind of plays that small ball 5 a little bit, and it goes completely overlooked by the entire industry. So if you do see Denny Advia or Kyle Kuzma potentially playing small ball 5 tonight, I would be very interested in them tomorrow. I do want to kind of wait to see and just confirm on that, though. Omar Rui is the only guy from Washington, just like DC said. With Tatum in, it's like pick your poison on the Boston Celtics, right? Because you're trying to get 1 of 5 right. There's a decent chance that this game is a blowout anyway, as my phone falls and probably cracked against that metal pole. But we get a lot of hope here in this one. But the great news, though, I do see in the chat, JT. I just have to mention it because I'm not sure if everyone knows. Brittany is giving away 5 tickets tonight on the Up the Lock Show to members too. So after 108K hit, Brittany is giving away 5 Wildcat tickets. So 333 tickets there for the NFL Super Bowl. I just had to shout that out. Not stealing thunder or anything, but it kind of gets me away from talking about this terrible Celtics Wizards game outside of Rui.
That's right. Brittany is here. Congratulations once again to a huge night, 108K off of $69 in entry fees. Fantastic. Congrats. A long time member and grinder here at Run Pure Sports. Could not be happier for you on that big night. And you talk about gratitude and not vengefulness, right? I mean, that's a lot of tickets to give away. I know it's a big win, but my goodness, what love being shown to the Run Pure Sports community by our girl Brittany. Thank you so much for that. Rubio will stick with you on this next game. Charlotte in Milwaukee. Giannis coming off of that dud last night. Milwaukee favored by 14.5. And you could ask yourself, is there any team that Milwaukee should be favored by 15 points right now? Even the lowly Hornets? Total here is 228 for the Hornets. LaMelo Ball is out. And it looks like the newly arriving guys, Davis Bertans, Seth Curry, and Trey Mann are also going to be out. Cody Martin is probable. Michik and Grant Williams are going to be out for the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is going to play. Patrick Beverley is available. Jay Crowder is available. Damian Lillard remains questionable. Man, if Lillard sits, it seems like a time that you might want to hit the button on Patrick Beverley. Giannis also going to be popular after that dud in this matchup. What are your thoughts here, Rubio?
Yeah, I mean, goodness. I'm glad the Hornets at least made a move to get a competent point guard back there. Michik is still a good talent, got good minutes for the Thunder at times this season. And I'm glad to see that the Ish Smith experiment is just done for. I do think that, we saw Cody Martin absolutely crush last game along with Miles Bridges and stuff. It's an entirely different matchup here against the Bucks. I mean, I do prefer to go with these backcourt players going against Milwaukee. Brandon Miller is playing with some absolute swag right now. Like, he is stepping up. He is making plays. He knows he's the guy. I mean, that's important too. I mean, Bridges is 1B, but Brandon Miller, when he gets hot, you won't see anyone else touch the rock. When they were going against the Lakers and Brandon Miller caught fire, ended up getting 30 DK in the fourth quarter or whatever, Brandon Miller came down that court and looked at all four of his teammates and said, "You ain't getting the ball." And I love that for tournaments. I love Brandon Miller. 7,500. We're approaching an extremely high tag for a rookie, but I do think if anyone can pay that off, Brandon Miller kind of has that little bit of mojo right now where he thinks he's the best player in the NBA, and I love that. As for the chalk options on Charlotte too, you're seeing Leaky Black. We had it in the comments earlier about why is Saber giving me 60% Leaky Black. I think a lot of that has to do with uncertainty right now with the rotations, with everything around it. Like I said, Omarui is only projected for 20 minutes right now in Saber. That could easily change to 30 plus, right? A lot of these guys could be very fluid. Maxey could be a guy. I am not clicking Leaky Black's name tonight at 3,700. I've already seen. I know that PJ Washington being out of the rotation helps him a ton because PJ Washington was the one who was closing over him. But still, this could be any one of those guys. It could be Nick Smith Jr. potentially getting a big bump tonight over him. Maybe the minutes are more secure. I can kind of see it, but I just think he has limited upside. For 3,700, I'm not going to dance that tango. Milwaukee side, though, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is definitely our 1A guy. If Damian Lillard's out, what we see, Jay Crowder put up 42 DK last night, right? You got to have interest in these Bucks. A lot of it depends on the Damian Lillard news. Malik Beasley at one point was 1 for 12 shooting the ball. So if you're looking for a bounce back guy who had a terrible game log game, it's Malik Beasley. He shot the ball horribly. He's still under 5K. Won't be owned at all. He will be owned a little bit if Lillard's out, but I do think that's a good bounce back spot. And for 1,200 more, you're going to get a guy who's going to shoot 10 more times than Leaky Black. So that's kind of my angle. Definitely a wait and see thing though, JT.
DC Rubio not dancing the tango with Leaky Black, but is it a samba that maybe you're interested in this matchup? Is there a salsa partner that you could find here in the Hornets Bucks game? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'll join Rubio on the Leaky Black fade, if you can call not playing Leaky Black a fade. I don't know if he's good enough to qualify. The story here, I mean, potentially a very, very intriguing game if Damian Lillard misses out. I think Giannis is the best spend at that point. I just can't imagine if Lillard misses this game coming off that loss against Charlotte at home. Man, you got to think Giannis just goes absolutely crazy. So he's the primary interest for me on the Bucks side. And listen, you can play him for sure, even if Lillard's in there. The matchup is still awesome, and Lillard might be a little bit hampered. But Charlotte, I think, is the more interesting side. Obviously, traded away PJ Washington, a key member of their rotation that was playing, 30 minutes a night, pretty much on a nightly basis. The guys they got back in that trade, Grant Williams, Davis Bertans, not Seth Curry, Trey Mann. None of those guys are going to be available for this one. They also, maybe goes under the radar a little bit, they waived Ish Smith, and it seems like Charlotte's kind of going with the little bit of the a youth movement here. We did see Cody Martin start in their last game and was the point guard. If you look at some of the data, the passing stats, he had the ball in his hands a ton, led the team in assists, potential assists, passes made, passes received. Only played 28 minutes, I believe, in that game. And I'm a little bit worried about the minutes ceiling for him just because he's kind of dealt with injury. But, yeah, I mean, he went off for 42 fantasy points in that one. We want guards against the Bucks in general. I know they got Patrick Beverley, but I'm not going to change my opinion too much based on the acquisition of one player who's not integrated into the defense yet. And, listen, Brandon Miller played, 41 minutes in that last game? I know he wasn't spectacular fantasy-wise. Miles Bridges played 38 minutes despite running into a little bit of foul trouble early in that one. And, Milwaukee's defense has been bad all year. That's why they fired the coach in the first place. And now it's gotten even worse with some of the changes they made. like if Charlotte can keep this game close, I know it's a big spread, but given how bad Milwaukee's playing, like I think the trio of Martin, Miller, and Bridges, they seem to have a very clear big three. The rest of the players on this team are so low usage, right? Nick Richards, he's a good defender, a good rebounder, but he's putting up like, 3, 4, 5 shots a game. McGowan's never really does anything. We see, the other guys, Nick Smith, like Leaky Black is a super low usage player. I think the Charlotte guys, Bridges, Miller, and Cody Martin, the three of those guys, if they play well, I think they could all play huge minutes and potentially all three of them go off. And I also think they're kind of correlated together, right? Because obviously Charlotte could get absolutely blown out of the building here. Wouldn't shock anybody, including myself. But if they're not, if this game stays close enough, I think it's because of those three guys having big games. So I've got some interest in kind of loading the boats up on Charlotte. I think people will be scared to do it because of the spread in this game, which I get. But, we're trying to get first place out of, thousands of teams. So I have no problem taking a risk that this game stays close. And then you've got the easy run back on the other side of Giannis, right? So I think stacking up the Hornets, playing Giannis on the other side and hoping for, 250 points in this game doesn't seem like that unlikely of an outcome to me. And I think is a viable path to get, close to the top of the tournament. So it's one that I'm certainly considering. I really like the Charlotte side of this ball. And then obviously Giannis on the other side looks amazing as well. Very interested in this game overall.
Brittany says, and we all know this, that Martin and Bridges were the MVPs for her on Wednesday, as of course was that late game. Many late night hammers in that lineup. DC 14.5. You taking Charlotte plus 14.5? I think I would here.
I'm taking. I don't need the points. I'm taking the money line. Charlotte upsets the Bucks.
Charlotte money line. All right. You heard it, Brittany. Put everything on that.
100K. There you go.
Go ahead and triple, quadruple, actually probably quintuple your money there. The other point, guys, Jay Crowder looks to be popular. Awesome game last night. Absolutely full fade for me here tonight. Sorry, that's not happening again. I think it was 7 of 11 from 3, something like that. Sorry about that. Stephen Crichton is here. He says, according to Nick Nurse, Buddy Hield and campaign have a good chance to start. What does that mean? That means that, well, whether Maxey is in or out, I think the lineup that you could see here is Maxey, Hield, Payne, and then Harris and Reed. So interesting stuff there. Tom wants to take that action if Lillard is playing, right, because he's been great all year, Tom. Thanks so much for your contribution to the Hardwood Show. DC, we'll stay with you. Next game, Denver in Sacramento. Sacramento favored by 2.5, 232 total here. KCP missed last night. He may miss tonight again. He's questionable. DeAndre Jordan, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter all in. Keon Ellis signed a 3-year deal for some reason. The Kings thought they wanted to keep him around. And Chris Duarte is going to miss this game. What do you like here? We talked about Nikola Jokic earlier, Sacramento and Denver.
Yeah, I'm leaning. I know the ownership is different. I still leaning playing Giannis, but Jokic is definitely a viable pivot. And yeah, I think he's the guy that you want from Denver. Great matchup here against Sabonis, who's a fantastic offensive player, but Jokic's going to have his way against Sabonis. So I like Jokic. I think you can look at Sabonis on the other side too. If you're not spending up on Giannis or you've got salary or you want to just get contrarian, I think that's a viable way to go. I'm not too interested in the other Denver guys outside of the Joker. I think Jamal Murray is a reasonable play that will go really low owned, partly due to the price tag at 8,400 is kind of high, and then partly because he does have that questionable tag next to him. We do expect him to play, but that'll hold the ownership down just a little bit as well. But yeah, for the most part, Joker I think is the best play in this game. Malik Monk still underpriced in my opinion. He's been over 40 in 3 of the last 4 games, still sitting there at 5,600. You just can't find that amount of legitimate upside at that price point in too many players. So especially at relatively low ownership. So yeah, Malik Monk, my favorite play on the Sacramento side. I don't think I'm going to guys like Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter today. Mostly the stars in this game, and then I do like Malik Monk for some late value as well.
I can't believe you're not on Harrison Barnes after the run he's had, but I totally understand it. Breaking news from our guy Alex. this is big. It's Jalen Green's birthday today. So, Rubio, who gives a shit? Talk about the Nuggets and the Kings. Now, it's been a rough little run here for Keegan Murray, but he seems too cheap for the potential in this matchup. What are your thoughts here on the Kings and the Nuggets?
Oh my God, that's the first time I've seen Keegan Murray's price. I just pulled up this game and stuff, and I was expecting to see 6.3, not 5.3.
You're welcome.
I tell you what, I've been playing Keegan Murray at 6K. I mean, we've seen when he can get hot, what he's capable of. I mean, I think that's a very good, I wouldn't say it's a leverage play because no one in this game is going to be extremely chalk. Maybe Herder and Monk get a little bit of ownership, but you're getting a lot of talent, a decent amount of minutes. I mean, you've seen this price fall, kind of come in line with Harrison Barnes absolutely going off, right? It's not going to sustain, and you're going to buy low on Keegan Murray. I think it's a good buy low. You're going to get 34, 35 minutes, and sometimes we even see more out of that. So this game is a little bit personal for Malone, Coach Malone here, because and obviously the Sacramento days with DeMarcus Cousins, going back into Sacramento. It's a back-to-back for Denver, so I absolutely think that the Kings can kind of go ahead and get the first punch here against Denver, kind of get things going. We saw Monk put up 50 last game, Sabonis go off too. I mean, it sucks because I love going against the Kings, but with the Nuggets basically fully healthy, I mean, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, if he misses, Justin Holiday is going to get the big bump in minutes, but let's be honest, I'm not clicking Justin Holiday's name, even if Stone Min there, even if KCP is out. It's just overall, I don't want to. We have so many good spots, so many good players that are getting a huge bump, and no one on Denver is getting that bump. And that's where the argument kind of comes in for Jokic, right? No one's playing Jokic, and he's getting into a great spot. It's going to take some time for me to think on that one, JT, because I truly want to play a Denver Nugget, but maybe I just save it for the late slate, right? Sacramento side, it's Monk, it's Herder, and then Keegan Murray. I do like that call at 5,300. That is so cheap for him. You know what? If he's a last piece in, JT, I could see myself clicking his name on this slate.
On this slate or on the late slate? Because you're talking now. I know that you're going to be in Discord later on tonight, giving out that late slate core, and this is something that you think, hey, wait a second, he's a good core piece on that late slate.
Oh man, he has been pretty rough lately. I wouldn't say it's a core piece, but man,
all right.
I think on the main slate, I could be tempted. I mean, when's the next time we're going to see Keegan Murray 5,300? Okay, maybe the next slate, but could be different next week.
Depends on how tonight goes. You could see him at 4,900 next slate. You never know.
Absolutely.
All right. Nothing interesting in chat. You guys are actually boring me. I need you to step it up. Rubio, will stay with you. The last game of the night. And go ahead, throw in some questions here because we're on a good trajectory on time here. New Orleans heading in to actually they were in Los Angeles the other night, smoked the Clippers. Now they get to play the.
All right, so
yeah, we lost JT. I'll take over the JT role for now. We've got the Pelicans and the Lakers. I get to host this show most days of the week, but JT comes in here and takes my job. So we'll gladly take it back for the moment. News in this one, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, questionable. I do expect both those guys to be in there. I think more reasonable, or actually questionable, Jonas Valanciunas. But I think, did he leave last game with a calf injury? That seems like something that you might not get over after just a couple of days. Yeah, JT's fuck it, I'm out of here. So he wanted to get his Friday started. You can't blame him. And then Zion is out for the Pelicans, which obviously opens up opportunity. You would think for Valanciunas, but maybe not. If Zion and Valanciunas are both out, welcome back, JT. Good to see you. I think Larry Nance becomes a really interesting play at 4,200. Maybe if just Valanciunas is out, but we already know Zion likely to sit. So that's an interesting spot. JT, welcome back. We thought you got your Friday party started early, but no, you're back with us. How did you enjoy your 2-minute break there?
It was fantastic. I'm taking notes on who's being mean about my disappearance. Go on, DC. Keep going. Yeah. By the way, Benny Hanna, thank you. It absolutely not you that I was calling boring. Go on.
Yeah, we'll take over your hosting job for this last game. So we're going to go to you first, JT. Pelicans, Lakers. We got Zion out. We got Valanciunas questionable. And then I do think LeBron James and Anthony Davis likely to play, but obviously a lot of, if they were out, a guy like D'Angelo Russell would come into play. We've seen him have some big games with LeBron out recently. Thoughts here on the Pelicans and the Lakers?
My first thought when I looked at this game, of course, this is before Zion was ruled out, is that the Pelicans had been really tough on defense. They've been playing a good stretch here, and the Lakers' prices are elevated to the point that I really wasn't interested in any of them. I think that's obviously changed a little bit now with the Valanciunas questionable. It obviously makes you more interested in guys like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, maybe even Najee Marshall. But of course, CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, they're going to have to do a lot. Ingram loves playing these Lakers anyway. He loves giving it to them after they traded him as a young, promising player. So I don't even if one of LeBron or AD are ruled out, and I don't think we get that news before the first lock, I'm not all that interested in any of these Lakers guys on the back-to-back at those prices. I think that most of my higher price players are going to come from the earlier games. But definitely you have to like some of these Pelicans players in this matchup, the way the Lakers have been playing.
Yeah, it makes sense. Obviously, the Pelicans, one of the premier teams to target today. I think, Rubio, your thoughts here on the Lakers and the Pelicans?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great point that JT brought up, talking about Brandon Ingram. He always gives it to the Lakers, too. And you're getting him at under 8K. Let's just look at the form that Brandon Ingram is in right now. So he's doing it all. We have seen a very poor CJ McCollum. We've also seen just a poor offensive outing from a bunch of these guys at DC. When you just look at this roster, everyone not named Brandon Ingram is really kind of in a funk right now. And Trey Murphy is one of those guys who's in a funk. You tell me Zion's out 4,500. I'm looking at Trey Murphy. I'm like, I love this play, but the way he's been shooting the ball has not been good. You're looking at a guy who expects to shoot 40% from the 3-point line. He is not even eclipsing 36%. He's like 35.25 or whatever. Like, he is not shooting the ball great, but minutes are what we care about. And we are going to see plenty of minutes for guys like Herb Jones and guys like Trey Murphy. And if Jonas Valanciunas, I'm with you, DC. You talked about a calf injury. Those aren't quick to go away. I mean, this wouldn't shock me to see him get sidelined through the All-Star break at bare minimum. Larry Nance Jr., potential starter minutes, 4,200. Also, former Laker revenge game. We got multiple spots here, and this is what we thought. JSU talked about last Wednesday night. These are the spots that can really kind of get you leverage on the field. Not that these Pelicans are going to be underowned. You're going to look at Ingram and McCollum. Murphy and Herb Jones could have ownership, but just kind of waiting for this late game news to fall. Because if Jonas Valanciunas is out, Larry Nance Jr. becomes one of the best values just on the slate in general. What if one of the Lakers are out too? I mean, you could kind of backload these games just a bit, right? Because you have the Kings and Nuggets to fall back on too. So if you wanted to save 3 or 4 spots maybe for these late games, not something that I think is a wrong move. I think that is something that you can absolutely do. And yeah, I'm with you. And unless we get AD or LeBron out, JT, I like what you said. We don't really need to go with these Lakers. D'Angelo Russell back in the mix. Reeves was the big beneficiary last night. He won't be handling the primary ball handling duties. So, it would just be kind of just staying away from the Lakers unless we get news in that end.
Yeah, and potentially when you think about it, Larry Nance, a pivot off of a much more highly owned Washington Wizard that we've talked about, the undersized. It's my favorite word of the day, Eugene Omoruyi. So you could fade that chalk and you could save it. Even if Valanciunas is in, they're not going to run him 37, 38 minutes. So no. You could replace him with a Najee Marshall or a Larry Nance. DC, your thoughts here? There's some news here that Tyrese Maxey is not going through his pregame warmups right now. So I think that's potentially big if he misses. What are your thoughts on the Pelicans and the Lakers?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm assuming Maxey is out, and I think, the coach says they've got a pretty good chance to start. I pretty much think they will start, right? I mean, I don't know. So I think Payne and Buddy Hield are both going to start for this game against the Hawks at those prices. And for
when's the last time you were this excited to play Buddy Hield?
Yeah, he still makes me nervous, but I think I might be in on Buddy Hield. I really like Paul Reed in this scenario. We talked about him earlier. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of good plays on the slate, shaping up to be a pretty fun one. And even campaign. I know Rubio, thinks he sucks, and he kind of does, but 3,800 starting point guard. I'm certainly interested in that.
All right. So no, Mateo is not outside my house, but we did need a distraction to get us to the mandatory hour time frame that we need to hit for all of the Hardwood shows. So I just decided to have a little fun. Actually, I don't know what happened, Rubio. I'm going to find the cause. I'm going to hire a tech expert, come in here and fix that. But it's time. Do you guys think that the chat deserves the play of the day? I mean, it's been mostly entertaining. I don't know what the likes are like, but we haven't been pushing them. What do you guys think? And in the chat,
Friday, Super Bowl week, we got to give them plays of the day today.
For good mojo, Rubio, what do you think?
Absolutely. For Super Bowl week, 100%.
All right. Rubio, you're our guest. You are our visitor, and as a sign of hospitality, we're going to let you go first for the Caitlin Clark WNBA play of the day.
Future Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark. All right, make sure you get that right. Number one pick in the draft. And my play of the day, it's the late game. Like I said, I kind of like reserving a couple spots for the late game. I like someone who has disdain for a former organization, and that guy is Brandon Ingram. Without Zion, expecting a big boost, and maybe no Valanciunas also will help a little bit. And the form he's in, Brandon Ingram tonight. JT, lock him in.
Brandon Ingram, a little bit of revenge. Unlike Porzingis, well, kind of the same thing. The Pelicans are a lot better than the Lakers, but I get it. All right, DC, the mom's basement play of the day. I do like how Rubio knows already where Caitlin Clark is going to play, and he's already circled the team's games on the calendar so he can get ready for when he can play her on those slates. But DC, the mom's basement play of the day.
Yeah, I can't even really name more than a couple WNBA teams, so we're on opposite sides of that one. We're going to get a little weird on this play of the day. I think a lot of really good, obvious plays on this slate. So we'll go a little bit off the board with Mr. Cody Martin. Charlotte Hornets expect him to get the start at point guard. I like to pick on the Bucks, and I think Charlotte competes in this game. Martin, we talk about it a lot, but I like pairing up Martin with Miller and or Bridges, and hoping Charlotte can keep it close enough where they all get their minutes. So Cody Martin, mom's basement play of the day.
Cody Martin and Brandon Ingram, fantastic. Benihana actually wants to play Caitlin Clark instead of some of the players she's getting in her Saberson builds, or he's getting in his Saberson builds. I'm not sure. So, all right. Cody Martin, Brandon Ingram, and for the Eiffel Tower play of the day, of course. Oh, there's Rubio's pet right behind him. This player had a terrible game, and a lot of us played him the other night, and he really, really hurt. He was completely hurtful. But if there's a player I know, and if there's a bounce back I can see coming, it's this one tonight from Ice Trae Young. Trae Young is going to absolutely nuke these 76ers. I don't think Maxey plays. Maxey's not a great defender. Then you're looking at Cam Payne and Buddy Hield. Stop. It's a Trae Young night. Trae Young is going for 70. For Rubio, our guest, thank you for joining us. For DC, everyone in chat, get on over, Run Pure Sports, use code NEWYEAR15. Stay right here, or actually go join, because Brittany's giving away 5 333 tickets, 5 of them for this Super Bowl's showdown slate on this Sunday. All weekend long, we're going to have Super Bowl content, a huge Run Pure Sports live show beginning late morning on Sunday, runpuresports.com. Good luck to everybody in your contests tonight.